Hello, everybody. Welcome to the OAG RC. It's time for us to start getting ready for the Orchard Raceway 2024. And we're going to have an exhibition match. And it's going to be our Tamiya hoppers. Well, all of our hoppers. Not just, well, I think they are just Tamiya hoppers mainly. But these guys are going to go out on the track and give us a bit of fun just to get us warmed up ready for the season. The Frog is now moving into the hopper class. Last season, if you remember correctly, this finished in 4th position. It was the wooden spoon of the finale, unfortunately. And it's not surprising, really. The ORV chassis is very competent on an off-road track, but it was competing against some quite awesome RCs, really. So I thought we'd take the hoppers out and let them have a little class of their own. So, to start off with, let me introduce you to the OAG's Frog. The ORV chassis is an off-road chassis. It's very basic, really. Onboard front suspension. So the suspension is inside these front arms here. And you can see already that while mine works, it is a little bit stiffer than perhaps I would like it to be. And the rear suspension, as you can see, is here on these rear suspension mounts there. It's got the same rear tyres that you would see on a Hornet and the same front tyres that you would see on a Grasshopper or a Hornet, I believe, also has those same front tyres. So it's very similar to the rest of the hoppers that we have in the same class. Now this, I can't remember my Tamiya timeline off the top of my head, but I do think this was slightly after the Grasshopper and the Hornet. And it does give us, I think, a more competent drive. These front knuckles here can be a weak point, so they can twist here if they're not tight enough, and I don't think mine are tight enough, but it'll certainly be all right for a couple of laps out on the Orchard Raceway in an exhibition match. So that is the Tamiya Frog, our first entry into the two-wheel drive hopper class. Here's the Frog's little brother, the Grasshopper. Now, my Grasshopper is from the 80s. This is an original Grasshopper. It does have a reproduction body on it because the original body looked nothing like this particular one, even though this one does look like it's got some road rash from the 1980s. These light buckets were on the original car that I had back in the 80s, and I thought they were a nice little nod to how old this particular model is. It has Hornet tyres that have been wedged on, rather than the tyres that come from the Grasshopper. The Grasshopper has paddle tyres, and these have got the Hornet spikes. I have put some aftermarket oil-filled shocks on the back of there, just to try and give it a little bit more of a dampened suspension at the back. That fixed rear axle again. The front, spring-loaded shocks, which do absolutely nothing. And a steering that moves in and off camber as the suspension works. It's an old car, this. Yeah, it's been run about all over the place. It's been jumped. It's been bashed. We treated it really badly as kids. In the back there, it's got a 380 motor, so it's going to be the slowest car that hits the Orchard Raceway this season. I have no doubt about it. But slow sometimes means more accurate. So let's see how this particular model gets out on the track. Now we're getting into the models that are too big for the camera. The Tamiya Mad Bull. My Mad Bull is equipped with a Fighter Buggy RX body with memorial decals, which is a little bit different. It also has CVA shocks, which is also a little different. Not on the original Mad Bull, they had friction shocks. You can see it suffers with that same horrible steering at the front that has incredible difficulty when it comes to moving around. It's going to cause some difficulties when it goes over the jumps, that's for certain. And at the back here, you've got the same rear axle that goes on the Lunchbox, and very similar to the one that goes on the Grasshopper. This model is absolutely huge, and often I struggle out on the Orchard Raceway in getting around. The Raceway does have some slightly wider lanes this year. I am hopeful that this has little difficulty getting around the track. This particular one, I can't remember. Peter Smith donated this to the channel, and I've got a feeling in there is a Tamiya sport tuned motor, but I can't see in there to tell you what it is that's in there. But it definitely is a little bit hotter than a standard motor, and as a result this one does tend to go a little bit quicker. The problem I often find with it is it's harder to control because it steers all over the shop. What it does do is, because of those massive monster tyres at the front, it rides over the bumps like an absolute champ. So let's hope that it does well out on the raceway. And the final entry for the exhibition is the mighty Pumpbox Lunchbox Midnight Pumpkin Edition. You guys have seen this out on the channel before. It has been nicely hopped up. We've got a few flashy bits of orange at the front and the back, oil-filled shocks, which still gives it quite a bit of bounce, to be quite honest. These monster tyres with their little nubby bits on the tread. We've got a nice high torque servo saver in there as well, and I think in the back of here somewhere, if you can see it in the back, we've got a Retro Sport Holmes Hobby, I think that's a 19 turn motor in the back of there to give it a bit of oomph. Will I be able to control it? That is the bigger question when you're dealing with a lunchbox. And will I be able to take it over the jumps without rolling it again and again and again and again and again? I hope that this goes all right this season. I will take it easy, or as easy as I can do, over the jumps, and let's see if I can post some decent times. And then welcome to the opening run on the Orchard Raceway for 2024. Starting things off with the Tamiya Grasshopper. 10 laps, so let's record the fastest time, and at the end of all 4 runs with the hoppers we will see which one has the fastest lap, and that will progress through to the finale. So a 10-second lap in the opening stage there for the Grasshopper. It's struggling around the track, it's very bumpy. 8.87, not bad. That's over a second faster for its second lap. You can see the difficulty the car has around the corners though. A little bit slower that lap. It's not able to stay planted, and maybe I need to do a bit more track maintenance before we get some of the faster cars out on the track. This lap's looking a lot better though. Beached. So here we have the Orchard Raceway's first competitor of the 2024 season, the Tamiya Grasshopper. 8.87. Not a bad lap. Well, possibly is going to be one of the worst laps. But what I would say is the track wasn't perfectly smooth. It still's got a load of bumps and ruts and stuff to work out. And I don't think I gave the Grasshopper a fair crack of the whip, it being first out and all that. I mean, we all know that the Grasshopper kind of does its own thing, right? And even with some oil-filled shocks on the rear, you know, this one is still bouncy as you want it to be. So I didn't really have massive expectations for it, really. What do I say about the track? The tree at Creation Corner, still a problem. I probably need to have a little prune around that. The jump probably needs some sort of runner down the side of it, stop the cars rearing off and catching the path, because that will mean they don't go over the jump, and we don't want that. We want them going over the jump. There's a few ruts that need filling in with some soil. But on the whole, I think the track holds up pretty well. So, first one down. Leaderboard will go up on the screen somewhere down the side here, or down the side here, or up the top. I haven't decided where it's going yet. It'll be on the screen somewhere for you to see. This currently sits at number 1, but that's because it's the only one that's gone. Welcome back to the Orchard Raceway. It is the Tamiya Frog out on the track today. Not a bad opening lap there. 7.47. Ooh, big crash on the start of the second lap though. Now the Tamiya Frog is one of my favourite Tamiya chassis from the 1980s. I just adore the way that this one handles. It is a really easy car to drive. And it's got a really tight turning circle, as you can see when it's heading round Creation Corner. It gets in nice and tight and hugs the tree. The others were touching out onto the path, but we don't have the problem with the Frog. 7.67, good lap. Oh, and another tumble. God, it landed nicely there. Got away nice and cleanly with a bit of a wheelie out of that jump, which isn't seeming to go too well for the Frog at the minute, is it? This is looking like a decent lap though. 7.37, that is our current lap record. And we're on for another fly by the looks of it here. 7.11, what a lap. That is the fastest on the Orchard Raceway this season. It is always an absolute charm to drive this RC. There's just something about the way it looks when it's going around the track. It reminds me of being a kid. So 7.11 is currently the leader. That is, I think, a really respectable time. I think the other two cars in this classification are going to be hard pushed to beat the Frog around the track. It just seems to handle quite nippily. And despite the fact it's got these sort of coat hanger type arms controlling the steering, and it's all a bit rudimentary in terms of the chassis and the suspension at the front, the rear suspension just works so well. I know a lot of you have said to me it's not really a hopper, and it isn't, because it's got that independent suspension that works so lovely on both sides. Now what happens if it was going around the track is I lost the dog bone outside of one of these. I've got to take it all apart and pop it all back in. It popped out of the drive cups somehow. I think it's where it meets the wheel hub is where it's popped out. Probably because of that really heavy landing that we had. You can see that they're both in at the top, but it's not in down the bottom here somewhere. It is completely popped out. There you go. See, you can see it in there. It's gone. So that's going to have to be taken apart and popped back in again, because it's the only way to force it back in, I think, because of that heavy landing. Yeah. Other than that, I think it drove really, really well. And it was just getting into my rhythm as well. The laps were getting faster and faster when I, spectacularly crashed it. But that is part of what goes on out on the Orchard Raceway. This thing saved quite a lot of impacts because of that grippy bumper. And you can definitely see why I had those back in the day, because it had a couple of big front end hits. In fact, I was trying to think, does it look like that's a bit skewed? Yeah, could be. But we're still in one piece. We've rotated the steering knuckle again, so we'll just push that back round again. That seems to be a common problem that I have with my Frog. It probably just needs tightening up a little bit. Up here, it looks like that is coming loose a little bit. But hey, it takes the punishment out on the track, doesn't it? And it keeps on rocking. So the Frog is in the lead. Top position out on the Orchard Raceway for now in the hopper class. 2 more to go. See you. Welcome back to the Orchard Raceway for another competitor in our hopper class. Today we are out with the mighty Tamiya Lunchbox Pumpbox. Two laps in and we are way off the pace with an 11.54. The Lunchbox is living up to its reputation as being both difficult to drive and also very bouncy. A 9.71 though, that's pretty impressive. This one's looking pretty hot as well. 9.11. That 21 turn motor gets the Lunchy moving really quickly around this track today. Now Lunchboxes are fine as long as you don't have to try and do any sort of backwards and forwards momentum with them, because the front wheels tend to lift up and you end up in that funny sort of Austin Powers backwards and forwards type scenario, as demonstrated here perfectly. Now, when the Lunchbox was out on the track 2 seasons ago, it took me forever to post 10 clean laps. I'm pleased to say that it's handling this little jump reasonably well out on the Orchard Raceway this season, and I'm getting in, albeit 10 slow laps. It looks like we're on track to be able to do some clean ones here and get through, which is great. We are not winning any fastest lap awards, but we are going to do a few tricks just for a little bit of style here as we go around Creation Corner for the last time into the last lap. And a little wheelie as well for you. Showing off now, showboating on the final lap. .11 as a fastest lap from the Lunchbox Pumpbox. Not far off, only sort of 0.2 of a second behind the Grasshopper, which I think is pretty good going. Last season it was a lot further behind than that. I think that the Shocks have definitely helped. I changed the setting on them. I made them all a little bit lower on the ride height. That motor has definitely livened it up back there as well. It was a 21 turn motor in there. It's giving it a bit of punch. It kind of lifts and bucks a lot more than it has done in previous years. But I'm pretty pleased with the way that's run this season. Is the Mad Bull going to do better? Probably going to do better, I think. But I don't think it's a bad. It certainly hasn't disappointed me. I reckon if I could have done a couple more laps, I might have got a better time. I could have got it under the 9 seconds. I think it would have been about the same as the Grasshopper. But hey, it's a whole bunch of fun, isn't it? And it certainly looks great out there, doesn't it? It's a good-looking RC. And we do have a whole bunch of fun with it. That's me. And our final competitor is out on the Orchard Raceway in the hopper class. The Tamiya Mad Bull, already pulling some stunts. 9.14, already putting in a decent lap here with the Mad Bull. It's driving round the Orchard Raceway this season very nicely. 7.57, we're now just behind the Frog. This is looking fast this season. I am very, very impressed. Getting a bit out of shape over the jump and riding the piping all the way down to the corner. The one thing I would say, if this gets out of shape, it is very difficult to correct it. And you can see there the inconsistency in the lap times when they're 11.44 on that last lap. This one's looking a lot hotter. But again, I get it stuck up there on the piping and it just really struggles once it's on there to get off again. We're starting to move again, getting some more consistent times coming through. 7.31, right on the tail of the Frog now. We're starting to find a bit of a groove. This is really starting to pick up the pace. 6.67, it goes fastest round the Orchard Raceway on the hopper class in 2024. Absolutely burnt out by the fastest lap. I stuck it into the tree. No longer driving consistently, but I'm very, very pleased with the performance of the Mad Bull this season. What a worthy competitor for the finale. What on earth just happened? 6.6 seconds. How on earth did that happen? I mean, you guys saw the video footage, yeah? This thing doesn't care about the corners, doesn't care about the rails. It just keeps on plugging away. The only thing that stops it is if it gets up on the rail and gets beached. It can't get the traction on those rear wheels, but wow, it was awesome. So, what it means is the Mad Bull with its sport-tuned, torque-tuned, I can't remember what's in there, torque-tuned motor, goes top and it wins the hopper class. I'll tell you what, I'm surprised. I mean, look, the CVAs help it, yeah? The CVAs help it a lot more than it would have had friction shocks. The motor, the torque tuned, is a bit peppier. I think that helps it out quite a bit as well. It doesn't turn the corners. I did do a steering mod. I don't know if you guys can see it in there somewhere if I hold it up. But there's like a little bit of tubing that I've put on the steering, which was recommended by Peter Smith, and that's really helped it out. The steering isn't as wibbly wobbly as it can be. And I just threw it together. And if you look back at the laps, that was kind of its fastest lap. So I'm not holding out too much hope for this in the finale. If the Frog had made it, the Frog is a bit more consistent to drive. Could have put down some better laps, but look, the finale is going to have the winner from each class in it. And it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be, we're going to do 10 laps, then we're going to lose one, and then do another 10, and we're going to lose one. I'm going to get down to a head-to-head, so it's going to be last man standing. I got a feeling this one's going to be out in the first round. But, stranger things have happened out on the Orchard Raceway. Stranger things have happened. But for now, it is the fastest car on the Orchard Raceway this season with a 6.67. It will be back again, and I will try and make sure that all the wires aren't hanging out the bottom. It will be back again on the Orchard Raceway. I hope you've all enjoyed the hopper class. And we do have a true hopper winning the hopper class. We are now on to the modern two-wheel drives next, which, just as a reminder, that's the DT03 Derek, the DT02 Holiday Buggy. We've got the Rising Fighter, which might well end up in the hopper class next year. And we have the awesome Tamiya TD2 as well to hit the track. Going to be fun, going to be more times. Are we going to be faster? Are we going to be slower? I don't know. We're going to find out on the Orchard Raceway. But for now, the Mad Bull gets its time to shine in the sun. Thanks for watching. I'm Craig. See you all soon on the OAG RC. Bye for now.